PlayStation's disaster to get rid of physical media continues to get worse. Needless to say, people are pretty much done at this point. This is probably the worst decision PlayStation has made in a very, very long time, and people are gonna make them regret it most likely. This cannot end well for them, and that's a good thing. We should stand up for what we believe, and I believe in owning things, and you probably do also. So, when you have a choice to not buy a PlayStation product, you should probably take it nowadays. Honestly, this should have been the choice for a long time with these console companies because they have gotten a little bit too laxed considering how poorly they're honestly doing. Xbox is a mess, and well, believe it, PlayStation is probably not really outperforming them that much.
Let's start off with this report from High Chaos Run titled PlayStation Killed Discs Without Telling Its Publishers or Business Partners. Sources familiar with the company's plans speaking to me on.
They're gonna get sued for this, by the way. The lawsuits have to be coming on this one because they had they had partnerships with a lot of these companies that were gonna release discs in the future. A lot of companies banked on this. A lot of companies probably chose PlayStation because of the physical disc sales. So the fact that PlayStation is now just like, yeah, joke's on you, buddy, we're getting rid of that stuff, there's bound to be a lawsuit.
Condition of anonymity, fearing retribution, have stated that PlayStation's decision was a unilateral one. Publishers weren't kept in the loop, and neither were its business partners. Quote, despite our seemingly close working relationship with PlayStation, we weren't informed that this was happening, said one executive at a major AAA publisher. It's only hitting us now that we may be out of jobs sooner rather than later, end quote. Sources say that the secrecy extended to keeping region offices out of the loop as well. So much so that PlayStation's India operations, for example, were negotiating deals with local distributors and retailers to invest in and set up exclusive PlayStation brick and mortar stores with an eye of having 100 of these in India by 2028.
Opening 100 brick and mortar stores in Canada is absolutely wild.
So like right when they were going to cease production. So this is like a cost-cutting measure, obviously. They say, why would we even work with PlayStation, let alone invest in them on a store when they won't be selling discs, said one investor that was approached. What's worse is PlayStation India didn't even tell us this was happening before it went public, but they kept asking us to put money in all the same. They didn't know either. While we are yet to see any public backlash from publishers, conversations with the console giant in private have been frosty. Those privy to such communications claim an attitude of condescension, with PlayStation going as far as telling them to take it or leave it. Though I won't be surprised to see the company tone down the arrogance when it inevitably breaks its nearly week-long silence on social media. I reached out to PlayStation for comment.
This is going to get wild because one of the things that fascinates me about these PlayStation decisions is the fact that PlayStation was successful while it was in Japan. But now PlayStation has effectively moved everything that matters to America? Yes, if you did not know, this is a thing. So PlayStation is no longer really a Japanese even company. We're probably a year or two away from PlayStation's CEO now being a true blue American Indian. So, yeah, that's a thing. And they're making all of these wild changes while they're effectively on completely unproven ground. This can only end bad.
And received none at the time of publishing this. That last part about a condescending tone doesn't surprise me. This reminds me of Get Two Jobs PlayStation from the PS3, where you saw the console, the back compat from PS1 to 3, you saw all the potential HD gaming, you see that price tag, and you're like, man, I really want that. And PlayStation tells you to get another job. They're like, we're worth it. And just seeing that arrogance creep back in, this is what I've been talking about all generation, when a company goes
Chef's kiss.
Mostly unchallenged and is allowed to fail in the recent window that PlayStation has been allowed to fail in and still go on to succeed, right? Where you see how they're handling things with Bungie, with physical discs. You see how they've been handling things with movies. Like,
what are we talking about? By the way, the PlayStation collapse is also coming. I just said about the fact that they're no longer, a Japanese company in unproven waters. The disasters that they have probably suffered in the last 2 or 3 years have pretty much led to most likely $1 billion or 2 in a negative revenue flow. They probably did not anticipate this, and now people are even more pissed. PlayStation wasn't in a good position 2 years ago when this all started, and it's in a worse position now. PlayStation's gonna get effectively Xbox style of reckoning very soon, most likely.
It's been an endless list of bad PR for PlayStation. In some ways, you could argue it's been worse than what's going on with Xbox.
Oh. Just to clarify, when I'm talking about massive companies and currently their bad decision making, most of the time when I say soon, I mean literally a year and a half, or 2 years to start to see changes or the negative outcomes really hinder them. Because massive companies like this take years for these things to actually start matter to them.
And we know Xbox has it really bad. Neither of these two are doing great. And it's why so many of us are, at least in the hardcore gaming circle, so unenthusiastic about the prospect of a
Hardcore gaming
PS6.
Hardcore gaming circle said the tourist.
The prospect of a Helix, it's killing everything we love, getting more expensive between console prices and game prices. And then we have arrogance to tie it all in there. Like, I get it, we don't matter. We're just the customer at the end of the day. But God, you're loud about it too. Not letting their partners know, though, is, I think, one key point in why there could be a chance that Sony is forced to issue a comment on this, because it is now disrupting their third-party marketing. Sony did finally break their entire silence on social media, their week of mourning, being quiet after announcing that physical games were dead. It's their longest stretch of silence in account history, and they come back and they're like, here's a fighting stick, and everyone's like, get them right now. Like, they're gonna come back and try to promote stuff. No. And again, funny enough, they did this right after Xbox dropped the news, because we know the Galaxy branding that happened internally. Again, I'm just letting it all sink in that the moment I read that news about physical discs being killed, that same time everyone else was learning too. And that says a whole lot about this situation, how they knew how bad this would be, but they thought they.
By the way, the reason that they knew is because Sony probably, as every modern company for some stupid reasoning, okay, there is a thing that only two departments ever matter in a company. We're not mentioning the people who do run the books and whatnot and pay the bills. We're not mentioning that one this time. There's two departments that matter: finance and marketing. Yes, finance for obvious reasons. Finance is the most important department, even in something like a, I don't know, coding thing, the place where coders exist, and tech industry garbage. Yeah, the finance department is way more important there even than the actual coders themselves. If the coders say this is bad, but finance says this is good, yeah, guess who wins very fast? It's finance. It's always finance. But marketing, some fucking how, actually even edges out against finance in so many ways. For example, this. Sony knew that this is a big deal because the marketing people probably said this is a big deal. I hate marketing so much. Their power that they have in every industry is just so nonsensical.
Could weather the storm, and again, to gamers' credit, people are really keeping up the heat, and I think that's an important part of this conversation. That's why we're here now. Where things get a little bit more interesting is what Insider Gaming reports, which is Sony CEO sells over half his stock following the PlayStation disc announcement. Sony CEO Hiroki Totoki has sold more than half his stock in the company. A recent United States Securities and Exchange Commission filing shows that the 61-year-old sold millions of dollars worth of stock just 2 days after the announcement that PlayStation was going to cease production of physical discs in January 2028. It also came at a time when stock saw a slight bump in price after the news had broke. Funny timing there. According to the SEC filing, Totoki sold 225,000 shares of Sony stock on July 3rd. At $21.02 per share, Totoki pulled in roughly $4.7 million on the transaction. The 225,000 shares represented 56% of his total stake in the company. Following the transaction, Totoki was left with 173,250 shares, but he wasn't the only executive to make a transaction after the announcement. Also filed on July 3rd, Sony...
Massively sus, obviously. Maybe they're doing a halving, though. Who honestly knows?
Chief Strategy Officer Toshimoto Mitomo sold 25,000 shares of stock, representing around 18% of his total shares. he sold his shares at $21.02 as well, totaling $525,500. Since the sale of the stock, Sony's share price hasn't changed much. In fact, as of publication, Sony shares are trading slightly higher at $21.20 on the New York Stock Exchange. In the 8 days since the announcement, Sony stock is up 6%. Because yeah, shareholders love this on paper until they realize that $80 games in a consolidated storefront may not result in a lot of console sales, and as a result, less game sales, and that stock will go down over time. I feel very
Consolidated storefront in that sentence, by the way, doesn't mean anything. You might as well just speak Korean.
confident about that. I'm no stock market expert, but I can certainly look at what PlayStation's doing here and how they're cashing out on a decision where they know the shareholders will love this one. I mean, these shareholders are the real customers to these companies at the end of the day, because these are the same ones that were trying to advocate for $100 GTA 6. And in a sense, they did get their
I was advocating for a $200 GTA 6. What are we talking about?
way. A lot of shareholders immediately reacted seeing the $80 price tag, but the reality is when you see the Ultimate Edition for GTA 6, the true version of the game with all the content bundled in, that is $100. So it really is the $100 game. And the same thing happened with Red Dead Redemption 2, where the $80 version of that game had all of the content there, and that was, for a lot of folks, the full version of the game. Combine that with the anticipation for the next big Rockstar game, and people will pony up, no doubt about it. So they're getting their way more and more, and they're serving them over you. And that is the most frustrating part, I think, above it all, is that truly we have never mattered beyond our dollar, but it's been more apparent than ever in this industry as we march forward.
If we mattered because of our dollar, which I agree with, then doesn't that mean that we have a lot of power here, boys? Doesn't that mean that we can achieve things by just, choosing to not spend that dollar? Like, what do you want more? Ungrateful fucking PlayStation getting your money, or Gabe buying another super yacht? I'm personally willing to just donate my money to Gabe at this point for another super yacht, honestly. I'm not even kidding. He deserves it.
Forward here. Now, what's happening on the Xbox side of things here? Well, Windows Central had a report saying PlayStation kills physical games as Xbox and Sony continue making poor decisions. At the end of their report, they say, as things stand, I'd be surprised if Sony even offered an optional external disk drive. As for Project Helix, our sources also suggest that Microsoft's next-gen console will drop the disk drive too. This was disappointing news, but also we all thought Xbox was going to be the one to step on this physical disc rake that PlayStation took for them, because Xbox has more of a digital ecosystem than PlayStation. More players buy things and play things digitally on Xbox than really any platform outside of course, PC. In the console space, Xbox is the leader there. That's because of things like Game Pass and training players to just get their games that way. Everything had gone digital for Xbox at an accelerated pace. And this felt like a more firm decision by Xbox, given this recent report from The Verge, where they say they are testing over at Xbox a disc to digital feature that digitizes a physical game collection. They write, Xbox employees recently started testing this new feature after references to enable disc to digital appeared in the Xbox PC app code in May. I'm told that Microsoft's disc to digital feature will work on Xbox One and Series X discs only, and that it won't work for 360 or the original Xbox console. And for that, I'm just like, figure it out, bro, or I'm out. Anyway, getting a digital copy of a game works simply by inserting a compatible disc and installing and playing the game. This will require a Microsoft account on an Xbox console and will grant a digital entitlement for physical games. This digital entitlement is tied to specific discs, and it will move from account to account if you swap the physical game with a friend or log in to a different Xbox profile and try to play a disc-based game. The digital entitlement for a physical Xbox game is similar to buying a title from Microsoft's digital store. If the game is available on Xbox Cloud Gaming and you have a Game Pass subscription, you'll be able to stream it. If it's an Xbox Play Anywhere title, you'll also be able to access it on PCs and handhelds. The Xbox disc to digital feature will also work with discs that come bundled with a console and multi-disc titles, providing access to everything that disc usually offers, including downloadable content. Some Xbox One games might not work with this this new feature, though. It all depends on how and when the disc was manufactured, and it may not have the features we need for this program, warns Microsoft to its internal Xbox testers. Now, discs will still work after they're digitized. You'll only lose a digital entitlement if you loan the disc to a friend or sell the disc to someone else. Microsoft is currently testing this new feature
Amazing.
internally, and I expect we'll hear more about it in the coming months. He says, I understand Microsoft hasn't fully finalized whether the next generation Xbox, codenamed Helix, will ship with a built-in disk drive, but if Helix is...
They're gonna sell it separately. If they have it, they're gonna sell it separately. This is something that they have found great success in. They don't need to make too many of them, technically, and, well, people are gonna buy them if they want to. It's that easy. It's an optional thing that they know people are gonna want.
Disc-free, this feature could be essential for Xbox owners wanting to digitize their game collection in the meantime for future Xbox consoles. Still ass. Yeah, like, I hate to be that guy. Yes, your disc has some sort of use, but it still is basically a key to getting a digital download. Well, why is that a problem, Maddie? It means that the content itself is still digital. And by that, I mean that they can take it whenever they want, and you're still just left with a license key.
Again, I understand the dislike of this. Obviously, I'm against it. Everyone's probably against it. I mean, right, everyone has to be against it. But this has been the case for the last 10 years already for things that actually are on the disc. You still can be bought from it.
Right, and that's nothing to you at the end of the day. The content has to be on the disc. That is the point of a disk drive. Disk drives aren't even that expensive, so I don't know why this is up for debate at all. This is all about the chewing of margins in the slimmest sense when it comes to physical game production. And I definitely can guarantee you, if anyone from Xbox or PlayStation is listening, anyone who actually cares about physical media, who wants to support it, will pay extra for it. And the reality is that digital needs to go down because y'all are taking out a lot of the manufacturing costs and selling games at the same price, and that's just unacceptable. That benefit of going all digital is not being passed on to the consumer. But I can at least speak for myself here. If Xbox went, look guys, with the way margins work out, how things are priced out, Gears E-Day, we'll give it to you for $60 on the Series X digital storefront. If you want a physical with the case, some slips, manual, content on disc.
I wonder how much of a success or failure Gears E-Day is gonna be. Because the wokeness in it is, like, absolute. But, I mean, it's hard to tell. I don't know what's the opinion looking like for Gears fans.
All that stuff. For us to make things work, it's $80. I would buy the $80 version. Not everyone would, and that is the point. It is the same boutique evangelist sort of approach that makes physical media important. It's why literally every content creator you watch that does gaming coverage has stuff littered all in their background because they're freaks about it. We're obsessed with the things that we love. It's why we even got in this.
I'm obsessed with ownership, not actually having it physically, though. That's my difference.
Place in the first place. It's why we are a community. It's why these things matter. We have countless.
But I have been thinking about, maybe putting a picture of Pokemon here in the back. What something like that? Maybe a Bethesda, maybe a 9/11, but Bethesda or something like that. Something classy.
Memories with these things. I was watching a video that was posted by My Retro Life of just all these flashbacks of him opening gifts on Christmas, birthdays, all that sort of stuff, and the memories that are attached to it is why these things are littered throughout our room. It's about culture, and that hardcore fan being created is then passing on that love to all these different players around the world who might be watching these videos. And for companies, why does that matter? Yeah, culture is cool and all. I'm sure that's what they're thinking. But that does, if you're caring about money, result in sales. When I talk about a game that I love on Retro Rebound, you bet your ass there are people who go out there and buy that game. Like, that is the reality of the situation for these companies. I'm not doing it to try to sell you something, but I'm talking about it because I'm passionate about it. But companies do benefit from that at the end of the day. When you neuter that passion, the ability to be passionate, that has a cascading effect on your business that you will only feel over time. You have to be wise enough to see it now and react now. So Xbox has the biggest layup of all time in front of them. You got owned in the Xbox One era. The reason why Phil weighed on his back and went, yeah, we lost the worst generation you could ever lose. Everyone's gone digital now. The same thing that happened to you and apparently crushed you. That moment where you had Adam Boyes and Shuei Yoshida handing a physical copy to one another. The moment you got stomped.
Yeah, that thing did not age well for them, sadly. That aged, oh my god, like milk. That's now that's now a symbol of fucking resistance.
Out there, you can do the same thing. The same thing. And not only that, when you look at how important PlayStation is to Sony versus how important Xbox is to Microsoft, Xbox has way more free reign to be able to make a call here and not have it heavily impact the Microsoft side of the business, where they could eat a little bit here for goodwill, which they desperately need. It makes so much sense. It's unbelievable. It's even a conversation right now. The thing I worry about.
He's actually, he doesn't mean what I'm gonna say, but Maddie is right about the goodwill factor, because Microsoft have been doing goodwill things like trying to feign that the Game Pass is gonna be less expensive and whatnot. They have been trying to get the goodwill back, because currently for Microsoft, it's just seeing if they can even get the customers back, which is a huge problem for them, obviously. So he is right about this. If they think that this is enough goodwill, they're gonna just do it. And because let's be real, they're probably already planning to sell the disk drive separately. They're either gonna just keep that or not get rid of disks just yet. They could because the thing why obviously these companies want to get rid of disks, which is kind of nonsensical on its own, because if you believe Jason Schreier's video of companies not wanting to lose 30% by physical distribution, the combined roughly 30% that they lose, that's fucking stupid, because you have Steam. Steam also takes 30%. What difference does it make? Do you lose it to Steam or to distribution or whatever? Well, to the brick and mortar store, I guess that would be the correct thing to say. But it doesn't matter. Like, again, 30% to Steam or to a mom and pop shop. What's the difference? There is none. Exactly. So, the fact that Sony, for example, is getting rid of physical because they don't want that percent, bruh? Like, come on. That's just stupid. You're still paying the Steam tax. Because God knows you're not going to be able to sell your own games on your own platform for the most part. Sure, there are things like, for example, Assassin's Creed. Turns out it's actually massive on PlayStation. I did the video about Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and I thought that they have sold 1 million copies, which was technically right, by the way. But turns out this time the PlayStation copies are actually massive, and it's also 1 million or more. Now, granted, the Black Flag thing doesn't make a lot of sense in some aspects. It seems sus, but overall, I kind of looked into it and what's happening with Sony overall sales-wise, and it does seem okay. Granted, I don't want to say this because we already lived through this once and it was really annoying for me, but the game's changing. The game is changing again. When we calculate pre-orders and shit like that, the game has changed. We already lived through that once, like 1.5 to 2 years ago. It was annoying. We could not predict correct numbers of sales. And now we're possibly going through it again because of what happened to Black Flag and 007 First. And technically even Crimson Desert was already like, a show that things are changing. So expect me to not actually look at the Steam charts and predict sales in the near future, because things are slightly changing and I don't want to get the predictions wrong if I can avoid it.
About is Xbox doing what they've done with Halo, which is marching out and saying, and it's a disc that you can add to your collection. Now, if it's fully content on disc, that's a different conversation, because I can see a world where Xbox steps out and says, we love physical media. We're here to support the physical gamer. We love that stuff. And so here's how we're supporting it with this disc to digital system. Technically, the content for, say, an Xbox One game is still on the disc. But if we get to a Helix game and that gets a physical copy, And it's the same way this digital entitlement program works. Yeah, I guess your physical copy has some use, but it's basically a game key card. And we've already gone over why that sucks. Now, the reason I'm out here on my soapbox is because of this next point here, which was made by the Xbox 2 podcast, specifically Jez Corden, where he says Tom Warren put in an article on The Verge that nothing has been decided for Helix yet. Things had been decided for Helix previously. However, Tom had more up-to-date information that Microsoft.
Yeah, Helix probably is on a question mark on a lot of things that are happening because of Asha Sharma. Because they probably want to change a lot of things that Phil Spencer thought is going to be. So Helix is a question mark, by the way. Anything we assumed, I assume personally nothing because I couldn't fucking care less if I'm being honest. But it's safe to say that the assumptions that you did, if you were interested in Helix, like for example, half a year ago or less, when did it get announced? Whatever, are now different than what you than previously. So in any case, that was Mr. Manny Plays. 10 out of 10 amazing. 10 out of 10. Have a nice day. Bye.